Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs published in the Delhi edition of Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 14th of August 2021 are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article itself. Important announcement. On account of national holiday on 15th of August 2021, there will be no edition of Daily News Simplified. Thank you and Happy Independence Day.
So the first article for today's discussion was published on page number 10, Delhi edition Hindu newspaper. It talks about recent central government's notification regarding the Plastic Management Amendment Rules 2021, which actually specifically prohibits single-use plastic items which have low utility and high littering potential by the year 2022. So these kind of single-use low utility products will be phased out by 2022. When it comes to the relevance of this article, from prelims perspective, it is important for national and international news articles, topics related to the pollution and ecology. From mains perspective, it is important for your general studies paper 3 under ecology and environment. Hence, it is important for us to understand what this is all about. So in this article, what we are going to read about is what government is planning to ban, what are the basic types of plastics which is utilized in India which require serious attention, what is the current aspect of plastic pollution in the country, what is the possible impact of plastic waste, what are the challenges which are associated with the plastic pollution, and we will also discuss about national and international initiatives which have been framed in order to control the plastic. And lastly, we will discuss the Plastic Waste Management Rule 2016, which were amended in 2018 and 2021. It simply means that we will cover the plastic pollution in the most comprehensive manner. So let us start with the first one. The plastic products which have been banned based on this notification are as follows. It includes your earbuds, plastic flags, ice cream sticks, thermocols, plates, cups, and many other cut-friendly items. It also includes your wrapping and packaging firms around sweet boxes, invitation cards, cigarettes, and many others. It includes your packets, plastics, even the PVC banners. It also includes your waste which has not yet been covered under the phase out of single-use plastic items, and the current status of less than 15 microns will now be extended to up to 120 microns. Previously, what India has that in 2019, India has actually brought a resolution in United Nations Environment Assembly on addressing pollution which is caused by single-use plastic products. And the most important product here was use and throw water bottles. Apart from this, government also created a national level task force which has two basic objectives. First one, to eliminate identified single-use plastic items, and most of them have already been covered in this notification. Apart from this task force was also empowered to effectively implement the Waste Management Rules 2016. Well, this is the core rules. They have been amended twice. So our focus would be these rules and their few amended aspects. Going by the recent issue of plastic in India, according to Central Pollution Control Board, India generates close to 26,000 tons of plastic each day, and about 10,000 tons of this every day remains uncollected. So this 10,000 is actually getting added into the environment. So this data as given by the government authority, this is the most important and authentic data you can trust upon. Apart from this, FICCI, according to the study, has provided a good news which says that in India by 2020 would be in a position to process the plastic up to half of its strength. However, it still remains very low compared to 90 and in fact 95% of the European nations. Apart from that, India as of now is not a major plastic consumer because it is as of now, despite having 1.3 billion of population, is consuming only 1/10 of what United States is consuming. So all these three data are important to frame a good introduction for your mains examination. When it comes to the current status and future perspective, this infograph, which is provided by World Economic Forum, has given us a dark picture of plastic in the future. So they have compared 2014 with 2050, and they have said that plastic production is going to be 4 times by 2050. They also tells us that by 2050, number of plastic in the sea or the ocean water will be equal to number of fishes, which is not a good sign. It also says that by 2050, plastic will become one of the highest consumer of petroleum oil, because petroleum oil is required to produce plastic. And lastly, plastic would actually become 15 times as a polluter or a carbon contributor to the environment by 2050. So all these data and infograph can help you to frame a good argument in the mains examination. With this keeping in mind, now let us see what is the actual impact of plastic pollution. Let's start with the first, economic losses. Well, we all know that plastic waste along the shoreline or the coastline has a negative impact on the tourism sector. And similarly, implementation of the plastic which is made by machines and based on the high grade refinery product actually crowd out the small and micro enterprises. Similarly, plastic also rule out those people or products which are based on the rural handicrafts, because handicrafts are not as plastic based as they are based on the traditional inputs such as earthen pot. The second implication is for the animals. It says that plastic waste have profoundly affected animals in aquatic, marine and even the terrestrial ecosystem. Plastic ingestion or eating up of plastic has upset or fill up the digestive system of animals. You must have seen the cow in the urban areas in that matter. Similarly, marine animals are trapped in the plastic waste and in fact the plastic nets, and plastic has also released toxic elements or chemicals in the water which has damaged their organs. They have implications on the human health, because chemicals which are released from the plastic contains compounds such as bisphenol A, and they also contain polybrominated diphenyl ether, and both of these are not good for human health. This may also lead to carcinogenic effects. Plastic over the year has also caused land pollution. Plastic has released hazardous chemicals on land, resulting in the destruction and decline in the quality which is required for a better sustainability of life and crop. It has also led to air pollution, because when plastic get burns, they release poisonous chemicals into the environment, which has caused respiratory diseases. Plastic has also led to the groundwater pollution based on what we are seeing in the land pollution, because all the pollutants which are generated on the land are actually getting leached into the groundwater, which is finally being consumed by humans and animals. These pollutants are actually get magnified when they transfer into crop, and these crops are consumed by animals and human beings. Similarly, there is impact on the water pollution, because many lakes and oceans have reported alarming cases of plastic debris which have been found floating on the surface. And this has actually impacted the aquatic ecosystem. This has led to dreadful consequences to marine creatures that swallow the toxic chemical. For instance, in 2014, United Nations report has estimated that annual impact of plastic pollution on the oceans is around $13 billion. Now this is very high estimate, and it can be substituted in order to provide relief from the plastic pollution. Plastic has also caused interference with the food chain, because studies have determined that the chemical effects of biological and the reproduction process, resulting in reduced number of offspring, thus disrupting the food chain. It has also caused poor drainage system, the best example being your urban floods, which have been caused due to the clogging of plastic bags and plastic bottles in the drainage system. It has ultimately caused impact on the habitat. Take for example seafloor. So seafloor plastic waste sheets actually act like a blanket, which inhibits gas exchange and leading to the anoxia or low oxygen level in the aquatic system. And when there is low oxygen in the aquatic system, it ultimately affects the reproductive capacity in the marine environment. And lastly, it impact on the invasive species. Now, how this happens? When plastic generated in one part of the world is traveling through the water bodies to the other part of the world, they also carry with them some invasive species. They may be microscopic, but they are. and they enter into a new environment and damages the ecological successions and also win over the local species. Given this impact of plastic on the environment and on the human and animal life, let us see what are the challenges in dealing with the plastic pollution. The first one being mismanaged plastic waste. Well, it simply means that humans are now dumping the plastic waste openly in the ocean water. And because of this, what we are observing that there is a generation of Great Pacific garbage patch which is hard to clean. Similarly, there is a spurious biodegradable plastic. Now, in the absence of robust testing and certification to verify the claims made by the producer, spurious, biodegradable, and compostable plastic are entering the market. And this has actually reduced the credibility of authentic plastic in the hands of consumer. Rise of online or e-commerce companies have further added to the problem. Apart from the plastic that we actually consume through traditional retail, the popularity of the online retail and the food delivery system, though restricted to big cities, is one of the contributor to the rise of plastic waste. We are also going through the issue of microplastic because after entering into the aquatic system, microplastic can travel vast distances floating in seawater or as a sediment to the seabed. A recent study conducted by an international NGO has revealed that microplastic in the atmosphere are trapped by the clouds and the falling snow. And because of this phenomena, microplastic can even enter into the food chain to human consumer. It is also causing a challenge of marine litter because plastic pollution in fresh water as well as in the marine environment have been identified as a global problem. And it is estimated that the plastic pollution accounts for 60 to 80% of the marine plastic waste. It also causes the challenge of terrestrial plastic because 80% of the plastic pollution actually originate over land. And this land-based sources has remained the final source or the primary source of ocean plastic waste. And lastly, we have challenge of improper implementation and monitoring. In spite of notification which was rolled out in 2016 and amended in 18 and 21, local bodies, even the biggest local bodies in the countries, including your Delhi, Mumbai and Calcutta, have failed to implement and monitor the segregation of waste. Because of this rising global concern of plastic, many initiatives have been undertaken. Now we have included one initiative of its kind. One being from the private sector, one being from international community, one at the national, one at the international, one by the non-government organization. So one example of each of these would be enough in order to write an answer in the mains examination. So beat plastic pollution. This initiative was taken on World Economic Day in 2018 by world leaders. Similarly, G20 or Group of 20 framework came up where environment minister from G20 nation agreed to adopt a new implementation framework for actions to tackle the issue of marine plastic waste on global scale. Similarly, there is an NGO or a non-governmental organization with the name Mindru Foundation. They have started an initiative See the Future, where they have projected to raise about $20 billion in order to fight for plastic waste across the world. We also have World Economic Forum, which has started Global Plastic Action Plan in order to bring private as well as public sector across the globe to fight plastic pollution in collaborative manner. And at India's level, we have Plastic Waste Management Rule 2016, which we will discuss in more detail. Apart from that, there are a number of states. For instance, there is Sikkim, which have replaced plastic water bottles with that of bamboo bottles. We also have initiatives like Delhi NCR, where government has completely banned the use of thermocol based drinking cups with that of paper cups. So these kind of initiatives are good in order to write an answer in your mains answer writing as well as for your essay paper. Now let us look into what the basic rules in India say about the plastic waste management. Well, originally the rules came up in 2016 and they provided a comprehensive mechanism in order to manage the plastic waste in the country. They were amended in 2018 and they have also been amended recently in 2021. The basic rules of 2016 says that the thickness of a plastic carry bag, which you often see in the market, should be 50 microns, where this is the thickness of a particular bag. Higher the thickness means higher the cost of production, and higher thickness also means they can easily be recycled. They have also extended the jurisdiction of plastic waste management to the rural areas. So rural areas are also part of the plastic waste management. They have also included the responsibility to waste generators in India. By now, they have also included the public events like weddings, parties, and others, and held the responsibility for the organizer. They've also talked about the use of plastic sheets for packaging, wrapping of the commodity under the ambit of these rules, which were not included previously. The rules also says that no new registration of a plastic bag, in fact for trading, manufacturing and distribution, will be made without any action plan. So if a person wants to start a business, let's say they want to manufacture plastic bags, but they do not have an action plan, so they will not be licensed in that manner. Rules also talked about the responsibility of street vendors and the retailers to not provide the commodity in plastic. However, this is the most grossly violated rules in the country. They also talked about the record keeping by the producer who are producing the plastic bags and distributing to the consumers. And it also talks about the responsibility which mandated the Central Pollution Control Board to formulate the guidelines for thermoset plastic. And lastly, the rules also talks about manufacturing and use of non-recyclable multi-layered plastic to be phased out in 2 years. Now, this was supposed to be completed by 2018. However, it could not. So in 2 years gap, government brought a new initiative or new amendment. In this amendment, they have talked about the central registration system for registration of producer, importer and brand owner. Why? The reason being to increase the accountability. Let's say the producer is registered, they have produced X amount of plastic bags, and now they have given it to the brand owners. Brand owners, on the other hand, are not registered. So this unregistered brand owner will not be allowed to buy those plastic bags. Hence, it will bring a kind of checks and balance on ground. It also provides for state level registration for small producers, maybe small brands, small companies which have small businesses, packaging, delivering and transferring to get registered at the state level. So they are not required to go for central level registry. When these two rules were not found to be efficient enough in order to deal the plastic pollution, government came up in 2021 with new set of rules apart from what was there previously. The new rules of 2021 actually identified single-use plastic items which have low utility and high littering potential to be phased out by 2022. So they have just given 1 year to implement this. What are these items? Well, we have already listed down in the beginning of this discussion. The thickness has now increased up to 120 microns, which is very high, pricey and will discourage its use. And guidelines have actually provided for legal enforcement of extended producer responsibility. Now, what is this extended producer responsibility? Well, it is a policy approach under which producers are actually given a significant financial and physical responsibility with respect to segregation and collection of waste at the source, which also includes for treatment and disposal of post-consumer product. So whosoever is producing plastic will take the responsibility of segregating, collecting, treating and disposing its own products, but only after the product is consumed. Before consumption, they have no responsibility. And now these responsibilities are enforced in legal manner. So this is a good initiative. Let us now come to the way forward. What should be the actual way forward in order to implement these policies and protect India from high grade of plastic pollution? Well, first of all, we have to raise awareness among the public about the harm that is caused by plastic pollution, educate them, provide an outreach program, conduct mass awareness campaigns. A movement against plastic waste would have to be prioritized. Not only this, public should also be encouraged to use alternatives like bags which are made up of cloth, most probably the jute cloth, because that will also promote the jute industries. Packaging in the jute bags can also benefit the agriculture sector. So these kind of alternates are also required. So we need to promote the alternatives as well. We also need to provide incentives to the alternative industries by introducing tax rebates and other conditions to support its transition from plastic industries. We also require to expand the use of biodegradable plastic. Now, biodegradable plastic and even the edible plastic made from various materials such as bagasse or even cornstarch or even grain flour can help both end consumers as well as the producers, because producer in this case is going to be a poor farmer. We also need to require to control the use of microbeads in personal care products and cosmetic at a level to the prohibition. Government can utilize the existing Swachh Bharat mission to extend it to the plastic waste management, because this mission can help us to set up industries to recycle the plastic. Because the plastic which is multi-use, let's say PVC pipes. So PVC pipes are utilized in households and construction sector for many decades. So that is the reason why we are focusing more on single-use plastic and not on the other one. We should also consider the best action to tackle the problem of plastic waste management. That is through regulatory, economic, awareness and voluntary action, given the country's socio-economic consideration. We should also focus on assessing the potential social, economic and environmental impact of whatever decision we are going to make regarding the plastic pollution. We should also identify and engage the key stakeholder and the groups like retailers, consumers, industry representation, local governments, manufacturer, civil society, environmental group, and in fact the most neglected sector, that is the tourism association, while making a particular policy regarding plastic waste. We should also help in expanding the decision and any punitive measure. See, what happens right now is people are not aware about the punitive measures of plastic use, irrespective of where they are staying and irrespective of what is socio-economic background of the people. So government need to focus on popularizing those punitive measures in order to articulate consumers' behavior. We also need to use our revenues, because these revenues will definitely help to raise funds. These funds can be raised through the means of small fees, fines and penalties wherever and whenever applicable. We also need to focus more on the enforcement, because most of the times it is being observed that enforcement at the local level is very poor. This can best be amended by clearly defining the duties, responsibilities in time-bound manner. And lastly, we need to monitor and adjust the plastic waste management measure if necessary and update the public on each and every progress. For this, the centralized system which government has created with the new rules can play wonderful role. With this discussion in mind about the entire plastic pollution, let us see the important question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and try to answer in about 11 to 14 minutes, utilizing best knowledge which we have discussed in this article. With this in place, now let us move to the next article for the day. This article was published on page 12 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about a recent achievement under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which says that because of the scheme, over 2,794 crore were spent in order to treat COVID patients. Now, based on this article, first of all, we have that COVID and its related problems are covered under PM Jan Arogya Yojana. So if in prelims examination, which is the purpose of this article, UPSC asks questions related to exclusion and inclusion of the diseases under this scheme, you should have this in mind. Apart from that, the thing which you need to focus in this article is what is this scheme, the objective of this scheme, what is the implementing agency, and what kind of a scheme is this. Apart from these 4 points, there is no major things which you need to study in this article. But we have to read about this scheme in length and breadth. So let us start with that. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, also known with the name Ayushman Bharat, has 2 different components. First one being your health and wellness center, and the second one is National Health Protection Scheme. This scheme is being run and anchored under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. But the implementing agency of this scheme is National Health Authority, which also have similar State Health Authority at the state level. Under the Health and Wellness Center, there are existing sub-centers with a number of 1.5 lakh, and they have been upgraded in order to provide basic facilities related to pregnancy, neonatal, child health, communicable diseases, some of the non-communicable diseases, mental illness, dental, eye and geriatric cares. So if UPSC asks, because they can ask in the elimination type of question that which of the following are not included. The most surprising element here is your mental illness. So mental illness is a good initiative to be included under Health and Wellness Center. On the other side, the scheme of Ayushman Bharat also include National Health Protection Scheme. This is a health insurance or a medical insurance scheme. Under this, 5 lakh per family per year will be given to the beneficiary irrespective of the size of the family. So there is no cap on the size or the age in the scheme. So be a child of 1 month or a person of 100-year-old. Every one of them in the family is covered under this scheme. So if they have spent, let's say, 5 lakh rupees this year, they can avail the next 5 lakh in the next year. So it is not a lifelong 5 lakh rupee insurance. It is 1 year 5 lakh rupee. It is available for all secondary and most tertiary. So this is the basic difference. All tertiary care are not included and all secondary care are not excluded. See, these kind of extreme words, these kind of superlative words are important for elimination in the prelim examination. So you have to pay special attention to these kind of words. Similarly, it will provide for pre and post hospitalization expenses. So once a patient is out of the hospital, they will continue to get the benefit till they are cured on a best level. It will also provide for transport allowances. And the most important thing is the benefits of this scheme are portable. So whether a person is staying in, let's say, Karnataka, they can get it portable to, let's say, Jammu and Kashmir. The one who is living in Bihar can get it portable to, let's say, the state of Gujarat. It is a cashless benefit and paperless transaction. So a person is not required to put cash to the hospital. Hospitals or the empaneled hospital will get it reimbursed from the government account. This scheme is extended to both public as well as empaneled private sector. So all private hospitals are not part of this scheme. Only empaneled private hospitals are part of this scheme. And lastly, all the beneficiaries which are covered under this scheme are part of over 10 crore families in the country, and they have been selected based on the socio-economic caste census database. So based on this discussion, now let us move to the question attached to this article. So read this question carefully and answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. The final article for today's discussion was published on page 7 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper. And this article actually talks about the recent initiative taken by Kerala government in order to prevent man-animal conflict. Apart from this article, we will be reading about some aspect of man-animal conflict, why they are arising and what government of India and the state governments have done in order to prevent them. The context of the article is straightforward. It says that reducing the human and wildlife conflict, Kerala Forest Department plans to acquire private estate. Now this is first of its kind on forest fringes, that is on the sidelines of the forest, and transform them into forest. Well, it simply means like this. Let's say this is a rough area of a particular forest, and these are some of the estates or the human settlements. Let's say some buildings, some construction site, hotels and whatnot. Because of this, there was a continuous man-animal conflict. Sometimes animals were entering into these sites and sometimes humans were entering into the forest area. Now what government of Kerala has done? They have extended this area and included these settlements as part of the forest itself. So they have just bought it, they have acquired these estates, and now they have extended the entire forest in order to control and prevent the man-animal conflict. So let us read that in more detail. The reasons for increasing human-animal or human-wildlife conflict are straightforward. There is habitation destruction, as we have seen in the example. Human settlements are going closer and closer to the forest areas, and this is because of the land usage patterns. There is also a biodiversity change, the basic reason being your climate change, disease, habitat destructions and others. We also have issue of wildlife crimes where humans are deliberately entering into the forest areas, capturing the wild animals for the illegal trade. And this has also increased the anger among the animal community. who are now perceiving human interference as a matter of conflict. And this is the reason whenever some legitimate humans enter into the forest areas, animals get angered and they attack on the human beings. And in the fight between both, most of the time, it is the animal which dies. We also are facing the issues of floods, forest fires, which are frequent in numbers now because of the changing global warming. And lastly, we also have increased wildlife tourism. We have seen the construction of different national highways in order to extend the tourism activity. We have seen the case of Char Dham highway, which is under construction in Uttarakhand. And because of the human-animal conflict, there are a number of impacts. The first being that physical injury and loss of human lives. We are also finding the destruction of crops and livestock. We are also looking into the risk of zoonotic infectious diseases. And lastly, we have threat to endangered animals as they are often killed in retaliation. The best example here is the elephant. Government of India and state governments have taken many initiatives in order to protect these kind of conflicts. First one being that the protected areas, which include your national parks, sanctuaries, conservation reserve, community reserves, have increased both in terms of quality and in terms of quantity. Government has already provided legal initiative under Wildlife Protection Act in order to control the interference in the wildlife areas. We also have Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, which has provided the control over the poaching and illegal trafficking activities. Apart from this, recently, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change have come up with a set of guidelines in order to prevent the human-animal conflict and top of all, if there is any conflict, providing as early relief as possible. These guidelines talks about setting up of helplines, including your mobile numbers, in order to act in a swift manner. They also talks about deployment of quick response teams which may be stationed around the forest areas where most number of conflict cases are arising. They also talks about speedy transport of victims to nearest hospitals. It also talks about the information on conservation friendly practices because we cannot go for one size fits all approach. So conservation related practices are required to be followed in a particular area. It also talks about identifying regular movement corridors. So all the places in this country where forest and animals are existing may or may not have corridors. All the national parks may not have corridors. So focus should shift to those areas where where movement of animals is frequent. It also says that there should be a maintenance of data on conflict cases. And wherever the number of cases are very high, about 3 or 4 points should be implemented ASAP. And lastly, it talks about insurance for damage of life and property. Life here not only means human life, even if some animals are lost who were dependent on the humans. Let's say there is a farmer who owns a cow and this cow was killed by a tiger. So that person should be compensated for that. If animals, let's say a group of elephants have damaged the property, let's say small herds or farm fields, these should be included in the insurance. All these guidelines can easily be implemented with states intervention because these problems are state specific. Let's say the case of Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have very high conflict. Similarly, there are conflict in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and northeastern states. On the other hand, there are states like Gujarat where the conflicts are very low. So state-specific intervention in these guidelines can work wonder in order to reduce the human-wildlife conflict in India. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the final stage of our today's discussion, that is question of the day. So this is your question of the day. Read the question carefully and answer in the comment box.